as an annual event. And it takes place around this time. But said, no, this event has to occur. And I'm glad that we are back here again for the celebration. Ladies and gentlemen, the director and innovation. In research and innovation, we basically carry out academic research. The two reports we are presenting today, they're actually academic researches. So that's basically what we do in research and innovation. We have other roles that are assigned to us in the board, but in the interest of time, I'll not dig deep into that. We have also National Assessment of Progress in Education. About 2 days ago, we had the dissemination of NAPE, the National Assessment of Progress in Education report of 2023. So NAPE is the other department. So I have a team of members I always work with. These are committed and dedicated Ugandans. I would like them to come up here for recognition. This is a team that I've worked with ever since I joined this institution. We have worked on a number of projects successfully. And the two projects that we are presenting today and discussing, they are out of the efforts of these men and women. So the members of staff in research and innovation, please come in front. Kindly stand up and come in front. So, the lady on my left is Florence Obongcha, which is the Principal Research Officer. The gentleman next to her is Thomas, Senior Research Officer. The lady next is called Ruth Senyonju Ndaki, Senior Research Officer. The lady next is called Betty Naukeni, is also a Senior Research Officer. Then the gentleman is called Bama Fabius Carlos, he's a Research Officer. So you can go back. So I've been given 5 minutes, but kindly I'll request for more 5 minutes. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank the government and the board members for the support that they have given us in the course of the last financial year. It is that support that has enabled us to do this work. I also thank the members of staff who participated in this research process. We have a number of staff who come from other directorates to support us. We cannot really handle the field work alone. So this was a joint effort. I also thank you. And in a special way, I also thank the institutions that have been giving us support. You see, this year when we went out for the field work, we didn't have enough manpower, so we had to outsource. So in a special way, I thank you for having supported us this year in the research process. Members, in today's rapidly changing world, the need for robust and equitable and forward-looking assessment practice becoming better. And in this way, we have had a number of achievements that I think that have enabled us to get where we are. We navigate this process through a shift, and this shift has been from the COVID to the post-COVID. So it has not been easy on our side, but we are trying to bridge the gap. In a traditional assessment system, the unit of progression is time. Today there appears to be substantial support for the competence-based culture, as opposed to the medieval concept of time-based learning. We see that CBC is perceived as important and as a panacea for the improvement and training for the growing complex contemporary world where technology is. So, indeed, the landscape is changing. In education assessment, we see that a number of developments are taking place. But together, let us forge a new path in assessment research and ensure that our work continues to make a meaningful impact in the world around us. The Directorate of Research is augmenting its role cycle time by giving priority to inventorying the existing deliverables. The deliverables, we are looking at research deliverables. So the significance of this conference is manifested. So by holding this conference this year, it's our objective in UNED to come up in a few years as people who have a strong research repository. So this conference is one of the avenues or the forums we are going to use to get there. This conference will not only help us reinvigorate research after COVID as an assessment practice, but will also serve as a preliminary barometer upon which new assessment paradigms can be based. Some of the new ideas that we hope to discuss today, we hope that there is need to integrate them in the emerging body of assessment knowledge, so that maybe policymakers in the future, they can use this as a point of reference. We have so many key issues that are taking place in Uganda and the world all over that call for rigorous research. But in the end, we see that again, the burden is on us as researchers to ensure that we carry out research and be able to inform policy so that the policymakers can come up with the best interventions. Researchers have given research direction, measurability, the element of causation, generalization, and specificity. I hope that the findings in the two reports that we are going to present today will be understood, articulated, harnessed on the basis of their relevant peculiarities, so that we can be able to address the assessment challenges and the challenges in the implementation of the curriculum. We also hope that this conference will be the stepping stone for more engagements and interactions in the future in order to have a sustainable way of disseminating our findings. So, participants, I hope that by the end of this conference, we shouldn't, or we should not say what we know about assessment, but we should be able to say we should be able to know what to say about assessment. I repeat, by the end of the conference, we should not say what we know about assessment, but instead we should know what to say about assessment. I'll end by underscoring the saying that the effective implementation of the curriculum determines the extent to which the educational objectives of the country can be achieved. I wish you a successful conference and a good progress.
A round of applause for the convener. We want to thank Dr. Tony Mzai for that inaugural welcome remark that has made this to make his welcome remarks, and after he has done so, to invite the chief guest who will then declare this annual conference open. Thank you so much. Over now to the EP.
Our chief guest, Professor Celestino Boa, who is the chairperson of the UNEP board, all board members here present, participants from the Ministry of Education and Sports, participants from the Ministry of Education and Sports agencies, particularly the National Council for Higher Education, NCDC, participants from universities and other tertiary institutions here present, our development partners, senior management of UNEP, directors and all the senior managers here present, and all of you distinguished participants this morning. Good morning to you all. My name is Ngobi Sebastian, as you have been told, and I'm standing here to represent the Executive Director, who has been unable to come this function because of a misfortune which befell the family. They lost somebody in the family, and right now he's with the rest of the relatives making funeral arrangements. That is why the Executive Director has not been able to come and mandated me to represent you. You are all very welcome to this conference. You will recall, some of you, that this has been an annual event which UNEP has been organizing, and we have been inviting a number of you stakeholders to come and be party to this event, because we believe that the work we are doing is work which must be shared by stakeholders for a number of reasons. But major of those reasons is to be able to inform policy and also stimulate research, further studies, further understanding of the problems and issues that pertain to our sector. These researches focus on education and assessment, because that is our mandate. And I want to remind participants that by mandate, we are expected to conduct research. And for that matter, we have a full-fledged directorate of research and innovations. for purposes of conducting research, education, and assessment. And we believe, just like we've been told by our director, I believe this contributes a lot as far as policy formulation, as far as best practices are concerned in our sector. It's unfortunate that COVID, like you were told, disrupted our routine of holding annual conferences. But I'm glad that we have now resumed these conferences, and I'm glad to report that even despite COVID, we were making communication with stakeholders whom we thought would add value to our activity here. Ladies and gentlemen, over the last 5 years, we have worked on a number of research projects, as you know. But today, with you here, are findings from 2 of these research projects. We have been using other avenues to disseminate the findings of all other projects. But right today, we are glad you are here to be with us as we make our presentation for 2 research projects which we have been undertaking. These ones are evaluating implementation of the new competence-based curriculum in the lower secondary schools in Uganda. You will all agree with me that the issue of the new lower secondary school curriculum is an extremely important issue today in our country and in our education system. So we thought that it was imperative to conduct a research as it relates to the implementation of the new curriculum. And we believe that the information we got will be extremely useful to all the stakeholders. The other one is why better performance, factors that led to better academic performance in the primary leaving examination, that is the PLE in 2020. This captured our attention because we thought COVID did a lot of havoc, and that the results of the examination, the results of candidates who sat the examinations under COVID conditions would be very poor. To our surprise, the results were astonishingly good. So we thought there must have been something which must have caused this, and probably finding out why the results turned out to be so good would definitely inform policy in terms of what is it that contributes to good performance, because the performance was not what we expected. So we were curious and conducted that research. And so we think that these are topics which are pertinent to all stakeholders here. These are issues that we must brainstorm about. These are issues which we think can positively inform policy, hence identifying them as the researches we are presenting at this conference. We have planned that this conference will be followed by country-wide dissemination exercise, which will be done based on regions at the end of the month. And indeed, the purpose of this is to share these research findings with as many stakeholders as possible. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is why we invited you. And on that note, I believe you will find value for the time, you will find value for your effort, and we expect very lively and interactive discussions arising from this dissemination. Let me take the pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, to welcome you once again, and above all, to now invite our chief guest, who is none other than our chairperson of the board of directors, Professor Celestino Oboa, to come and address you. Thank you very much for listening. Professor, I take the honor to invite you to address the participants at this conference.
Thank you very much, Sebastian. The representatives of the Ministry of Education and Sports and other ministries of government who are present this morning, national agencies that have been invited to this dissemination conference, all the distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Good morning. It is indeed once again a pleasure to stand in front of you, distinguished participants, yet again to listen to results of work that has been done by the Secretariat of the Board. I'm impressed that I'm seeing quite a number of my board members. So let me recognize all of you. Could the board members stand up, please, for recognition? Juma and colleagues, Ismail, please stand up and just wait. Thank you very much for coming. So when I speak, if I make any mistake, you will bear the consequence of the mistake that I make. So today we are set to receive the results from the very many researches that have been done by the Secretariat, particularly the Directorate of Research at UNED. And we have been told that the dissemination of research activities that are carried out in UNED is meant to be disseminated every year. However, the last dissemination was done in 2019. So in between, we have had a gap. 5 years is not a small amount of time in our lifetime. But of course, the reasons for why dissemination has not been done in those years have been given. But it is important to observe that during these 5 years, 7 key areas of research have been done. There was continuous assessment, research and continuous assessment. There was research on low achievements at PLE, UCE, and UACE, broken down in various subject areas, looking particularly at declining performances in those subject areas. And the 2 areas that are going to be disseminated today is about implementation of the competency-based curriculum, particularly for the lower secondary level. And then, of course, performance, good or bad, in specific areas, especially after the COVID-19 pandemic. The other 3 areas that have been area of focus is the candidate registration at all the levels, PLE, UCE, and UACE.
the field conduct of examinations, with particular focus on examination malpractices. And last but not least, the marking of examinations and the release of results. So over the 5 years, these investigations have been done, researches have been done in this area. Today, we shall be having results from the 2 focus areas being disseminated. But I would like to inform your participants that UNEM has been very active in the areas of research. Annually, there is the annual examination, what is it? AEA. Association of Examinations or Education Assessment in Africa. Association of Education Assessment in Africa, AEAA. Conferences that have been taking place every year. Since 2019, 3 of them have been conducted. UNEM has consistently presented no less than 7 research findings in those conferences. And I've been widely informed that UNEM has had the highest number of presentations in all these conferences in the whole of Africa. This year's conference is going to take place next week in Cape Town. And I'm told researchers at UNEM will present 8 papers to that conference. And indeed, Africa and the world will know what UNEM, and for that matter, Uganda, is doing in terms of research in the field of education. These researches have not been done in isolation. UNEM has collaborated with institutions and partners that are interested in investigating what takes place in education in Uganda. So we have had collaboration with universities and other higher institutions, researchers who are interested in partnering or collaborating with the researchers at UNEM. For example, in 2022, UNEM collaborated with Makerere University School of Education to conduct research on the declining enrollment at A-level. We all know that we have been worried. We have so many candidates for UCE, and then we have a trickle enrolling for UACE. And the question we have been asking, where do all these young boys and girls, where do they disappear if they don't want to progress to UACE? Even the Ministry of Education was concerned. They wanted answers. And we, Ugandans, need those answers. We need to appreciate the fact that this has only been possible because UNEM makes it as a mandate to retool our researchers every year. In the context that these researchers are taken through a training. You know, they're saying that you can create a path, but you need to walk it every day for it to remain a path. The moment he sees walking in it, it soon grows up and becomes a bush. And so, for the researchers to continue perfecting their skills in research, we bring on board facilitators internally and externally to resharpen them to be able to conduct more rigorous and more quality research, results of which informs policy. In order to improve the quality of research being conducted by UNEP. The Secretariat is preparing to launch a UNEP Research Ethics Committee. Every institution worth calling itself a research institution needs to have a body that looks at the quality of proposals that are being made for conduct of research. And this requires people who are outside the research team to conduct ethical review of research. A long time ago, people thought that the only time you need an ethics review is if you are going to cut the leg of people or open the brains of people. But now we know that even when you just want to ask people what they eat before they go to sleep, you're infringing on their rights. So you have to do it in an ethical manner that does not cause anxiety, fear, or worry to your research participants. Often we call it human subject protection. You need to protect the people that you are conducting research on so that you do not harm them in any way. And harm doesn't have to be physical, it can be psychological. Because you've asked somebody which side of the bed he sleeps in and things like that. You've asked somebody whether he washes in the morning, washes his hands before eating or after eating. And so by the time you go out to say, we now recommend for people to wash hands before eating, there would have to be evidence why should that happen. We know that culturally, many communities, you eat first, then you wash afterwards. But now we say, no, you wash first, and then you eat. Now the other washing after the eating is just for aesthetics. You want to leave your hands clean enough. But otherwise, in terms of fear of infection, or taking harmful things as you eat, wash your hands first. And today we even say, before shaking hands with other people, or after shaking hands with people, wash your hands. This morning, as I was coming, I was hearing about monkeypox. I think you may have heard of mpox, how it is spreading within the Eastern African area. And a particular strain that has been identified in the DRC, which is spreading very fast in Rwanda, Burundi, Kenya, and now it has come to Uganda. So it went round, and we have re-imported it to Uganda. And so we need to be careful, because this is spread from human to human. How? Well, if I like you, I will hug you, but I would have given you the virus. But washing hands before eating, and just being careful, because I'm also told that it can also be sexually transmitted. That's a tough one. So, protecting ourselves. Somebody would have done research to find out that, oh yes, it can also be transmitted in that manner. Stick to your partners. Hopefully they have not shaken hands with somebody infected. UNEP annually, if possible, conducts countrywide dissemination of research findings. And in the last 2 years, UNEP has conducted regional research dissemination throughout Uganda, 2022 and 2023. And this year, we also plan to conduct this dissemination. I want to ask ourselves, my assumption is that we who are here participating in this annual research dissemination conference are asking ourselves, so why conduct research? Why should we conduct research? Or what's the purpose of conducting research? For millennia, we know that we have transformed our world Because there are people who observe things happening and ask themselves, why is it happening? In order to get answers to that, why or how is it happening, you go and investigate. And earlier researchers got into trouble with the authorities. I think you all may have read the story of Galileo, how he was persecuted by the church for claiming that the earth is round. He was persecuted. They forced him to resign from his position in the university and so on because he claimed the earth is round. Because the church, which ruled the world at that time, believed that the earth is flat. And he said, no, there is evidence that the earth is round. Common observation. Somebody, you know, I don't want to mention the name, was taking a bath. And he found himself in the bathtub and he displaced the water out of the bathtub. And he asked himself, so why was he able to displace the water? Right? And we now know today that you have a volume, you have a mass. Everybody has a volume and a mass. While you may not displace your mass, you can displace your volume. They are not necessarily the same. Your mass can be greater than the volume, and your volume can be greater than the mass. Why do ships float and carry tons and tons of cargo without sinking? Because they are able to displace a larger volume than the mass they carry. Why don't we float? Why are we able to remain grounded? And yet when you go to the moon, you make a mistake of jumping, you might go forever. So these are all questions and observations we do. Research, therefore, gives us evidence. And it is based on this evidence that we can inform policy, that we can change our view of what we took for, what we took as it was obvious. It changes our view and makes us realize the environment we are in. It allows us to change the environment we are in. The only animal that is able to change its environment, to better its environment, is human beings, because they're able to conduct research to do that. It helps us to lend credence to common beliefs or disprove common beliefs. And therefore, it is important for us to fund research. I was just asking Mr. Sebastian here, how much do we spend for research as part of the UNEP budget? Says maybe about 5%. And that's not very far from nationally what we do, what we spend on research. I think at a national level it could be about 1%. Which is a bit too low. As a country, we are spending much less for research. It is something that we need to change and spend a little more money on research, which helps us to change our environment, which helps us to improve the kind of life we intend to live. There are many problems that has beset us as a nation. Health, education, economic, climate, agricultural. These days I reside in what has been called the land of milk and honey. I don't know how many of you know where the land of milk and honey is. That's where I reside these days. But I can tell you, rain has been a difficult thing to get. Cows are feeding on the roadside. Why? Because somehow the petrol fumes is making the grass along the roads grow better than the ones in the fields where the cows are supposed to be. I don't know how many of you come from these areas I'm talking about. You have herdsmen now herding cows along the road with the danger that it causes to the traffic. But they're doing it out of necessity. There's just no rain. During there was a function in 2022 where the president was in Mbera, Kacheka Stadium. And he was complaining about the type of rain in Angola region compared to the type of rain even in Karamoja. He says, the clouds that bring rain in those areas are dark clouds. But the type of clouds that bring rain in Angola are light. They don't threaten you anymore. In our place, they used to say, when you see that kind of clouds, the monkeys do what? The monkeys begin to do what? Run scared because of the dark clouds. But those dark clouds are not there in Angola. So you find, sunshine of 1 week, the grass is gone, it's dry. We need to find out why. What can we do to improve on this? And the answer is very simple. Researches have been done. Plant more trees. But we cut down the trees because we want more space for our animals to graze. We are responsible for degrading the environment, and yet we want the environment to improve our livelihood. So we need research. We need people. We need these findings to be conducted, to be turned into action. We need these findings to be turned into action. So we do conduct research on education. But this research that we conduct in education takes years to implement the findings into action. The uptake of research is extremely low. The other day I was talking about when we were having the NAPE dissemination, that the way we package the information is perhaps responsible for why there is no uptake of the findings of the research that we do. Besides that, we should emphasize the fact that we need to support the researchers. We need to encourage the researchers. I have been fortunate that in some earlier years, I was the chair of the committee, of the board committee on research. And there are two ladies I used to confuse. Florence, I know. She's a young, but now a grown-up woman. Betty and Ruth. I know the two of you, but I can never say, is this Betty or is that Ruth? But it is not what they look like, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about their dedication to conduct research. We must congratulate these ladies, Florence, Betty, and Ruth, and of course the gentlemen who have joined them. When we were looking for a director for research, it was not an easy process. We took some time. So finally we got Dr. Muzari to head the director of research. And I think we did not make a mistake. So thank you, Dr. Muzari. The secretariat, headed by the executive director and all the others, I want to thank you for prioritizing research. Because we will not be here today to listen to findings if you do not fund and support these researchers. I'm particularly thrilled that you want to improve on the quality of research by bringing on board your ethics committee. If you want to know I come from a university. I am the current but exiting Vice Chancellor of Barry University of Science and Technology. One of the things we have done is to strengthen our research ethics committee. No research goes out without passing through the research and ethics committee, whether it be a student or a faculty conducting research. It has to go through the research and ethics committee so that we are sure of the quality of the research being conducted. So I congratulate you, Dr. Muzari, for this effort that you are taking. And I know you are informed me that you're going to get training by the Uganda National Council for Science and Technology, who are mandated to oversee all the research activities, including research ethics committees at the various institutions. I encourage all of us to take and appreciate the outcomes of these researches being conducted. But I want to introduce another idea to us who are here. I don't know how many of us are familiar with an area of research these days. We refer to it as implementation science research. I don't know how many of us are familiar with it. It started in the medical field, but now it is everywhere. Why are we talking of implementation science research? Because in every sector, there are policies that are passed out. And these policies are supposed to be implemented. The question we ask ourselves is, why is there a difference between the policy as stated and the actual implementation of the policy that is supposed to be carried out? And so, we, with questionable minds, want to ask ourselves, why have we failed to have this well laid out policy to be executed the way it's supposed to be executed? So one needs to conduct what we call implementation science research. Or, in brief, we use implementation methodologies, implementation research methodologies to investigate why have these policies failed. So in the education sector, we have many policies that are not working as well. So I want to encourage us, not only the research team at UNED, but some of you who are researchers in your own right, to carry out implementation research on the education sector. You'll be surprised at what you will find. Because the only way you can improve on the implementation is when you want to find out what is preventing the policy from being implemented, what is encouraging the policy being implemented. Because they look at the barriers and facilitators. There are many theories and frameworks that are used to guide this kind of research. And I wouldn't want to storm you now with that. But if you want to invite me for a cup of tea, we can sit down and I can take you through some of these frameworks, which is usable for the kind of research we want to conduct. That means, as a board, we need, and as a ministry and a government, we need to provide funding for this kind of research. It's very feasible, and within a short time, you'll come up with recommendations that are clear. Because you'll say, Minister, this is what the policy says, this is what we are doing in terms of implementing this policy. And we have found out that the reason why we are not able to do it is this. What could improve it is that. So can you fund this so that we can improve on the implementation of these policies? we are all not naive about research. We all know something about research. And so, it is not that the 3 or 4 people who are going to be presenting today are the only ones. And so we should be able to have a frank discussion of the findings. I encourage us to have a frank discussion of the findings that are going to be disseminated today. That's the only way we can go back having understood what has been investigated and the findings that have come out of it. Let's not come and sit to give numbers to attendance. Sometimes it happens. You come to give numbers to attendance. But I want to encourage us to take interest in the findings of what is going to be. And for us who come from agencies that are interested in education, even take particular interest to get explanation from the researchers. How were you able to achieve this? Why did you achieve that? Would you have done it differently? And so on. And the researchers will take these critiques positively because you are talking from an informed position. So with all this rambling that I have been saying to you, I want to wish us very, very fruitful discussions, reception of the findings, and discussion of the findings for this 14th annual dissemination, research dissemination. And it is now my singular honor to declare the 14th annual research dissemination conference open. May God bless us.
Join me in appreciating the chief guest for these wonderful remarks. Another round of applause. This is very great words of wisdom from our chief guest. We thank you so much. Please get seated. Ladies and gentlemen, I do believe that we have listened attentively, and I want to thank the chief guest for officially declaring this annual research conference open. Now we have the unfettered freedom to proceed with our presentations as well as the discussion that will come thereafter. So this marks the end of the preliminary arrangements. We now have to go to the second bit where we shall be receiving the presentation. For the convenience of the chief guest and the ED, arrangements can be made so that they can have access to the screen. Florence has arranged a convenient place so that you don't crane your necks. And as they become internally displaced, can I now take the opportunity to invite the presenter for the next paper, Mr. Kauhanga Rogers, take the seat, as well as Professor Samson Ngai Obudu. Please come forward.
Thank you, participants. I think we have been patient enough and we have listened to speeches. So now is the time. The research we are going to present is a research on the evaluation of the implementation of the competence-based curriculum in the lower secondary schools in Uganda. We see that this curriculum was rolled out in 2020, but even at the time of rollout, there were a number of concerns and teachers Other stakeholders felt that they were not addressed. So our stakeholders, the teachers, were on tension. And I see that even now, these stakeholders, the parents, and other parties, they are still on tension. Because now we see that we are drifting into the competence-based assessment, the end of cycle, which will be conducted in November, October this year. But that has the tension calmed down. So now this is the issue. So we have some parents who are comfortably containing this tension. And then we have those who are still on tension. You see right from the beginning, some are saying they don't understand how the grading is done. They used to understand the old system. Some are saying they don't understand how the teaching is being done. So there are a lot of issues. And even us here in UNEM, it is a turnaround time. So many activities are taking place, continuous assessment and blah, blah, blah. But the issue is, they say that if you don't dream big, or if your dream don't scare you, then they are not good enough. If your dream don't scare you, then they are good enough. They are not good enough. So some parents are overcoming the tension. But the issue is, it's not going to be much different. For us, we looked at the implementation, or we went out to do this reconnaissance in March and April this year, specifically to have this as a baseline. For us, our role is to assess. But there is no way we could have assessed and even release the results in January, February next year without knowing what's on ground. So this research is acting as a baseline, or what I refer to as an inception. It's an inception study. So we did it to inform the future activities, because soon or next year we shall now get into another research, and this will be the competence-based assessment. For us, we assess, and we are going to assess basing on what has been given to us. That is the curriculum. But at the end of the day, if the performance is not good, then there will be questions. That means there is a gap. So again, we have to get back in the field and see where is the problem. But we can't know where the problem is if we didn't conduct this research on the implementation of the competence-based curriculum. So that's why we did this study. Because you see, even in schools up to now, some of them, when you get there, they don't know what to do. Exactly, they don't know what to do. Some are still cocooned in the old curriculum. Even the teaching. The teaching itself is still actually coiled around the old curriculum in some schools. So now the issue is, as people who are in assessment, we needed to know what is the situation on the ground. So we set out in March this year, March, April, and we sampled 300 schools. We sampled 60 schools from each region, from the 5 regions. How are these regions categorized? We categorize them as North, West, East, Central, and then Kampala itself. So we had a sample of 300, and we had 60 schools from each region. These were both private and public schools, mixed and boarding, partly a day and partly boarding, single sex and mixed. So I'll take this opportunity to invite the presenter who is going to present this report on the competence-based curriculum, so that now we can be able to find out what is happening as far as the implementation of this curriculum is concerned. But before, I would like to take you through the areas of focus. We looked at the understanding of the competence-based curriculum, that concept of competence-based curriculum and its tenets. Then we also looked at the teaching methods and the approaches that are being used. Are they in line with the guidelines? Then, how the teaching and learning is being conducted in the classroom situation. How the teaching and learning is being conducted in the classroom situation. And then the classroom lesson preparations. The classroom lesson preparations. Are they still the same? Is it the same approach that is being used as it was in the past when you had the knowledge-based curriculum? Then the focus here in the classroom lesson preparation looked at the student activities and the teacher activities. Then we also went into our area, which is assessment. We could not really distance ourselves from assessment because this is our mandate. So in assessment, we looked at the assessment of learners during the teaching and learning process, the assessment of the learners during the teaching and learning process. What kind of questions are being posed when the teachers are teaching? Do they involve critical thinking? Are they high order thinking questions? Or they are lower order thinking questions? We also looked at the preparation of assessment plans. Assessment plan, not lesson plans, but assessment plans. And the assessment schemes. Then we also looked at assessment approaches. And the items used, that is in the activity of integration. When they assess at the end of the chapter or a topic, that's the activity of integration. What kind of questions are being formulated? Are they formulated well? Are they in line with the guidelines? Those were the questions. And then lastly, we looked at the challenges being faced by the schools, teachers, and the students. So, without wasting time, I'll now invite Chair, maybe I have the powers. Can I do the invitation again? Presenter, please come forward and present the report.
Thank you so very much, Session Chair and the Convener. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Session Chair, with your permission, I intend to dispense with protocol because I think those who spoke earlier dealt with that ably. And I'll head right into the presentation. Maybe before I do that, my name is Karuhanga Rogers from the Directorate of Examinations. I'm an examinations officer. Ladies and gentlemen, I will start by drawing your attention to a few facts, observations just to give my presentation background and context. UNEB, we are an assessment body. Therefore, our efforts or focus is so much on matters assessment. And in the current times, we talk about it, we call it CBA, competence-based assessment. But here is a study we did about CPC. So if our playing field is matters assessment, then what business do we have with matters curriculum delivery? That is CPC. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, it's not lost on us that if you have to understand anything about assessment, then quite obviously you have to get into understanding what goes on in the classroom as far as teaching and learning is concerned. Therefore, matters CBA can only be understood and explained by matters CPC. I hope I make myself clear. CBC, competence-based curriculum, CBA, competence-based assessment. What triggers this is what the doctor himself ably expounded on when we launched something to this study, sometime in March this year. Our focus was and still remains on the end-line study that will be carrying out in February 2025. That is, will be after the outcome of the examinations that will be administering this year, October, November. We believe with a sense of hindsight or foresight that with this study, we'll be able to understand and explain the outcomes come February 2025, the time when we release the results. So this then now becomes a baseline that excuse me. Okay. Now, when the curriculum was rolled out in 2020, out in the field, it met with maybe at best you would say, so lukewarm a reception, and then at worst was a hostile reception. And for the past 4 years, the situation has not changed much. Could have changed a little, but has not changed much. What were the concerns? Why that lukewarm or even hostile reception? What we find out with the findings, like I will later expound on, was majorly schools saying, or even teachers, that we don't seem to have prepared enough. Many, about like 89% of the respondents who were teachers, said they were not trained, they are not prepared. That there is short supply of materials required for effective implementation of the new curriculum. the teachers, the shortage of materials, the financial and human resource inadequacies by 2023 were key concerns of quite a number of stakeholders in the implementation of this curriculum. But according to NCDC, everything that they had to do, they believed to a great measure they had done. And when we interfaced with them, I record something here. The NCDC stated position was I quote, before the rollout, 90 national facilitators, 1,600 master trainers, 20,000 teachers of Senior 1 were trained. Teacher training took place in 27 SESAMAT regional training centers across the country. An average of 4 to 5 teachers from each school, both government-aided and private, was trained. A total of 6,020 schools, both government and private, received syllabi books distributed by NCDC between October to December 2019. 1,500 government schools received Senior 1 learners prototype books, teachers' guides, and training manuals. Even to date, we still retool our teachers on CBC. That is NCDC. But then out there, we seem to see a different situation as to where the veracity of the two positions lie remains a question. Ladies and gentlemen, with the realization that with these challenges, the grand objective of educational skills attainment may suffer or could have suffered a big blow as we picked interest, knowing that it certainly will inform or explain whatever outcomes there will be come the CBA that we are set to study, looking at the outcomes of the October-November examinations. The purpose of the study I seem to see something different here. What the projector is different. Those who are well grounded in matters technology. Apologies, this is not the presenter, it is technology.
We'll just pass on something quickly, and that is to do with the areas of convenience. When you move out, on your left, you see the signpost. Please don't die silently. They are available. Just out outside there.
Okay, we are back on track. So when we head out, we had definitely there was study, we had objectives that guided this study. They are displayed. We set out to assess the understanding of the concept of competence-based teaching and learning of the new lower secondary curriculum by teachers and students. So our concern was, to what extent did they appear to understand this, or how well did they understand the concept of competence-based teaching and learning? 2, we were interested in examining the assessment approaches, examining the assessment approaches in the competence-based teaching and learning under the NLSC in our schools. And we are also interested in exploring the challenges experienced in the implementation of competence-based teaching and learning by both teachers and students. What were the research questions that we put out to these respondents? 1, to what extent do teachers and students understand the competence-based curriculum? 2, to what extent are teachers using competence-based assessment approaches in the teaching and learning process, the new lower secondary curriculum? 3, what are the challenges that the teachers and students experience in the implementation of competence-based curriculum? Bloom's taxonomy is the theory that underpinned this study. Of course, Bloom's shed some light on Bloom's taxonomy. It is a framework of categorizing educational goals into 3 domains. You can call them taxonomies: the cognitive, the psychomotor, and the affective. Then Bloom went further to categorize, to break down the 6 involved in the cognitive domain. And that is knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. The whole idea is you attain the knowledge, should be able to apply this knowledge to understand, comprehend, then apply it, analyze it, synthesize it, and lastly be able to evaluate it. The new lower secondary curriculum, therefore, hinges on Bloom's taxonomy as a checklist to ensure that all the domains are assessed and are in line with the appropriate assessment methods. Our research design. We zeroed in on a convergent parallel mixed methods research design. This kind of research design allows a researcher, when we head out, to obtain, to collect both quantitative and qualitative data at the same time in one phase. Question would be, why would you go for that? Of course, capitalizing on its advantages. That with it, both the quantitative and qualitative data obtained in the same phase, one is able to reinforce the other, or while you analyze, gaps can easily be filled, either in the quantitative data with the qualitative, or in the qualitative data with the quantitative. What was our study population? Ladies and gentlemen, our study population was the composition of the population was head teachers of schools, the teachers, students of senior 3 and senior 4, officials from NCDC, from UNEP, and from the Ministry of Education and Sports. We are therefore talking about a total of 7,331.38. And then we had to sample. That was the total population we had to sample. And eventually came up with 1,574 respondents that actually took part in this study. Question is, or would be, how do we now get the 1,574 from the 7,031? We relied on Krejci and Morgan, 1970, sampling. It guided our sampling, that those tables were able to, if we are talking about, for instance, as projected, UNEP officials being 267, then we zeroed in on 155, those that actually took part in the study. Head teachers, as you can see, teachers, NCDC officials, Ministry of Education officials, senior 3 and senior 4 learners. In this column here, a total gives us 1,574 respondents that actually took part in the study. And on the other side, you see that we use this cluster sampling almost all through multi-stage, cluster sampling in some cases with the UNEP and the Ministry of Education staff and NCDC. And then when it came to students of senior 3 and senior 4, we used a simple random sampling. I mentioned the sampling techniques. Data collection methods. We used questionnaire survey, and this is the method that was employed to collect data from teachers. Then we used interviews. It's both structured and semi-structured interviews were conducted, and this one with the teachers and head teachers. We used the focus group discussions, or the FGDs, with the students of senior 3 and senior 4. And here, the FGDs were 100, each consisting of 7 to 12 respondents. Maybe to let you know that out of the 100 FGDs, 5 of them it was with students with disabilities, and that was deliberate on our part. And then observation, we intended to observe lessons in progress, teachers conducting lessons. We needed to see how the teaching and learning goes on in a outcomes. We observed these lessons in 40 schools. 8 picked from each of the 5 expounded on earlier. Remember, we had picked out 60 schools from each of the 4 regions, plus Kampala. Kampala is made a region given its very unique characteristics. The other method we used was document review. We had to study several publications, like UNEP's progress reports, the teaching books, class registers, teacher lesson plans, teacher schemes of work, and student project books. were reviewed. Data quality control. We made every effort to ensure that the two aspects of validity and reliability were taken care of. And for validity, we used the content validity index to evaluate the quantitative data. And the expert judgment was used for qualitative data evaluation. When it comes to reliability, we relied on Cron-Batch alpha coefficients. And we had a pilot study where we went out to about 10 schools, taking out the very tools, the questionnaires like we used them, so that we get back and be able to improve upon them. And when we are doing that, we relied so much on the Cron-Batch alpha coefficients to give us, to be able to tease out which of the items would pass the test, and that was the threshold of 0.7 and above. And then we obviously, for reliability, we again used inter-rater reliability for qualitative data. Data analysis, we used starter version 15 to analyze quantitative data from all the structured questionnaires. And the descriptive statistics, that is frequency counts, percentages, mean and standard deviation. Starter version 15 came in handy to help us study, evaluate and analyze that. Qualitative data analysis, we also used for content thematic analysis when it came to qualitative data analysis. Ethical considerations. We made every effort, and this was done, that we obtained permission from the participating schools first, as the case must be. We also obtained letter of administrative clearance from the Ministry of Education and Sports to allow us to conduct this study. We obtained national approval from Uganda National Council of Science and Technology, and we of course took care of other ethical principles such as anonymity, privacy, confidentiality, informed consent, voluntary participation, objectivity, etc. Characteristics. I now get into study findings. What were the characteristics of the schools that participated in the study? The sample was 300 secondary schools, 60 obtained from each of the 5 regions, as enumerated earlier. I should take note, I should highlight this to you, that 79% of all the 300 schools were mixed sex schools, both boys and girls, compared to 21% that were single-sex schools. Majority of the schools were day schools, constituting 39%, and boarding schools, constituting 32%. Then those that were partly day were 19%, and those categorized as partly boarding are 10%. Now that may be to shed a little more light. Where schools are categorized as partly day, it means the bigger number, it's more of this than the other. More of the day, where you have just maybe like a quarter of the students. Day schooling, 1 to 3 quarters are boarding, or the other way around. Some schools operating private hostels. Largely it's a day school, then you have maybe just a quarter residing in those hostels. That kind of thing. So, our findings on objective number 1, that is the understanding of the concept of CPC. The survey findings showed that the majority, 59% of the teachers, had a proper understanding of the concept of CBC and were knowledgeable about the objectives of CBC. 59%. But initially, 89% had told us they never attended any of the trainings by NCDC. Now, question is, how then now do we reconcile the two? I will answer the question before you ask it. That our findings were that a number of teachers had made every effort through personal initiatives to try to understand what this thing is all about. They had consulted, they had read materials, they had, not because they had attended any of the workshops, but they had tried to get themselves schooled and skilled all through their own personal initiatives. That's what we obtained from the field. Majority of the teachers, constituting 53%, have been able to cope with the demands of the new curriculum through consultations, sharing, and carrying out personal research. Like personal efforts to try to know what this thing is about. And of course, they are not yet there. Maybe they are not yet where us, let me say us as NCDC, we would want them to be. Meaning there are gaps that we need to fill to get them better. Teachers' inability to apply CBC approaches was also confirmed through their lesson preparation, as 72% of the teachers were unable to specify CBC learning activities such as teacher activities, student activities, and assessment activities. Very few teachers, less than 10%, drew lesson plans, had lesson plans. Some teachers were still using lesson plans that are stating behavioral objectives, while others were using lesson plans that state learning outcomes. In other words, doing things still the old way. We also found out that a number of teachers preferred talk, chalk, and chalk method because they wanted to cover, according to them, to cover content of the curriculum within the time set by the school on the timetable. They realize they have so much to cover in so short a time. So what do they opt for? Talk, chalk. You end up choking the learners. On your part, you want to accomplish what you've set out to accomplish. But on their part, your guess is as good as mine on the part of the learners. We found out that there were too many students crowded in classes, leaving the lecture method as the only practical way for a teacher to. One interesting case, and many of these, there are many of these, a situation where a teacher, the classroom was so crowded that even the teacher could not have space where to stand inside the class, and had to conduct his lesson in the doorway, standing at the doorway. Now, someone who had intended to observe the lesson from the back of the class also had to do that through the window. So you can see how much of a constraint that definitely is to delivering this curriculum the way it should. According to our respondents, CBC was time-consuming, and teachers opted for teacher-centered approaches regardless of the understanding of the learners. Application of participatory methods of teaching. 58% were using participatory methods, approaches in the teaching, classroom-based, problem solving, demonstration, and classroom-based inquiry. almost 58% of the teachers. Look at that table. The table displays to us participatory and non-participatory teaching methods, the percentage inquiry-based learning, 66%. Schools are trying, that's what you think. They seem to be trying to do better. Group work and group discussions at 48%, average. Group work to make presentations where teachers give students activity, they have got to fall into their groups, but then thereafter they have to make presentations. 40%, we think average, or maybe bordering on below average. And then group work to do assignments at 45%. And then students working alone, 75%. And this was common. The respondents were asked how NLC is underscoring the teaching of competencies which focus on practical application of skills. Under problem-based learning, case-based learning, discovery learning application. And only 48% of the teachers were applying the approach. That table displays some of the project-based learning skills in school studied and what we found out. Construction of projects during learning, 29%. Of course, that's very low. Use of artifacts, 21%. It didn't appear that common. Use of problem-centered learning, 39%, not common as well. And research, 26.5%, also rated as low. The time factor in the implementation of the new curriculum. Our findings were that large classes were a major setback, especially when carrying out participatory and collaborative teaching and learning. You can easily refer to the scenario or the example I just gave you earlier. And then on performance of tasks during lessons, 46%, that is average, the respondents confirmed that performance of tasks during lessons was actually happening. Teachers' use of collaborative tasks in the classroom. Mark you, collaborative tasks are those that require learners to work together, either in pairs or in groups. And the findings indicated that 60% of the teachers preferred individual tasks. And you wondered why. Because learners, you end up denying learners the opportunity of learning from each other. Sometimes we call that peer tutoring, through which learners tend even to learn better or to learn more. Use of application of demonstrations. 69% of the teachers do not always call students out for chalkboard demonstrations. We can try to guess reasons like the other classroom situation. Even if you call someone from the back to come and demonstrate, where would they pass? It would take them 5 minutes to try to see where to pass to reach the chalkboard. Even if the teacher himself is standing in the doorway. So, then, and we also found out from the learners that where it happens, there is a tendency of teachers always picking on the brightest students. Today, tomorrow, and tomorrow next. They will keep calling some John, some Richard, the same, because they know that they will not lose time with someone who will still be struggling to explain something that they are still struggling to understand. So that confession was made by the student respondents. The teachers tend to pick on only the brightest to come and demonstrate on the chalkboard. Then 71% of the students acknowledge that some teachers in subjects like math put emphasis on demonstration during lessons. However, given chance to demonstrate on the chalkboard are the bright students. We believe that should come out. Majority of the schools studied are not putting emphasis on project-based learning. That's what we found out. Mr. Chairman, I hope you will at the end. Once again, this is not me, but here is where I find myself. Okay, yeah, many of the schools in the country have not fully comprehended the concept of project-based learning. And we also found out that projects, the commonest areas that students were going for, agriculture, farming, environment, liquid soap making, these appeared to be the commonest in all the schools. NCDC will let us know maybe here whether there are others, whether those are the fields where students must contain themselves, but it is institutions we found out there. It might be telling us something that we need to do. The table there gives us, now on interactive learning, student-teacher interaction, where we have students asking questions or making contributions and responding to teachers' questions. This was found to be below average. Remember, like I said earlier, teachers preferred to use the lecture method. We have a case, an interesting one, where a lesson was observed for 90 minutes. And all that time, communication was unidirectional, coming from the teacher to the students. 90 good minutes, just like a preacher in church. Of course now, with matters as they should be handled, competence-based curriculum, we are far off them in that respect. On teachers providing constructive feedback to students during the learning process, 63% of the students agreed that teachers were giving them constructive feedback. Then on teaching load, CBC, when it came on board, of course it came with an increase in the teaching load per week. And now this coupled with increase in student numbers had a drastic effect on the teachers' operational efficiency. You have increased load, you have big numbers, and you have little time. You can see that the interplay, what it leaves you with as a teacher. That is from the side of the teachers. No time for lesson preparations. Teaching and learning materials. Available materials in the library do not communicate skills and competencies compared to the old curriculum books that were into giving lots of information. This is what was coming out in our respondents. And the materials that you have do not communicate the skills and the competence. They struggle to understand. Then teachers were also reluctant to use CBC textbooks and materials as they require long periods of lesson preparation. They were trying to avoid them. And then that coupled with acute shortage of textbooks in schools due to inadequate, from head teachers, inadequate funds, or procuring them. Wherever they were materials new curriculum, you'd find them really so inadequate compared to the numbers you have in the classroom and in the schools. The table there shows teachers' use of performance tasks in class at 42%, limited application. Teachers' use of collaborative tasks in class at 39%, few use it. Chalkboard demonstrations are emphasized only at 43%, limited use. Teachers use interactive sessions at 47% average. Increase in teaching load for teachers, 53%, more than teachers contend that. Availability of learning materials at 41%, still considered inadequate. Limited avenues of conducting research, no computers with internet, and we had situations where students confess that they end up resorting to teachers' mobile phones to carry out research. Here's something to do. There is no, if anything, there is no computer library, no computer, no internet, so they end up getting their teachers to use their phones. And of course, that comes with some other, you can imagine. A lot is at stake when now learners must get to their teachers, ask for their mobile phones to use for research. Objective 2, what were our findings? Teachers focused on assessing lower levels of thinking and did not care much for questions that reinforce critical thinking. This was a very telling revelation or finding. Most questions did not appear to have been planned, thought out, or even clearly formulated. In other words, teachers were not making assessment plans. If I'm going to conduct a lesson, which kind of question do I want to put across? You have planned them because there is something you want to achieve or to test or to assess. But that was never the case. For instance, we had this, I should quote, yes, one of the respondents, a teacher, one of the teachers said, I don't use any plan. We are talking about now assessment plans. I don't use any plan. I ask questions spontaneously as they come to mind. So they don't plan their questions. Then the other one said, I don't like to ask those questions that require much thinking, because learners cannot answer them. Now here we have an interesting situation that both the curriculum and those supposed to implement the curriculum seem to be heading into opposite directions. The curriculum is emphasizing higher order thinking. A teacher is saying, those ones I cannot, I must go the other way. Now, what kind of student does that leave us with? Maybe as the brains behind this curriculum implementation. Thankfully, we are speaking ourselves here and now. Post-play, we'll come out with what to do. Application of project-based assessment. Project-based assessment was not common in the sampled schools. About 22% encouraged production of portfolios, project work, or written essays, which promote creative and critical thinking. Use of assessment schemes. In 29% of the schools, it was found out that teachers had assessment schemes in place. Only 29% of the schools visited. 29% of the schools visited. And they appear to be coping well with the CPC approach. That, of course, tells us where we are. There is a table there. It's a recap of major of what I've already gone through. Now, on objective 3, inadequate training of teachers on CBC. Teachers have not yet received adequate training to effectively deliver the new curriculum. That's what we found out. That's what the teachers were telling us. Those who seem to, there are those like even for the past 4 years, they are teaching, yes, but they have never attended any training. So whether they've been learning on the job, we can try to imagine. But they are doing things, maybe either doing them right, the way envisaged by the within the framework of the new lower secondary curriculum. Inadequacy of physical facilities. It was observed that 48% of the schools lacked adequate physical facilities. Here we are talking about libraries, classrooms, laboratories, ICT facility rooms were lacking. In 10% of the schools, 10, there are no physical libraries at all. Nothing called a library in 10% of the schools. In 15% of the schools, there is nothing like an ICT room or even ICT teachers, and yet they must teach ICT. In such schools, we found that classrooms were set as laboratories. One moment it's a class, the next moment tables are put together and it's used as a lab, but of course do not have the necessary equipment to conduct basic experiments. And we also found out that most schools lacked playgrounds and other physical facilities. Especially in Kampala. Schools, they must teach PE, they need playgrounds, not a single playground. They must outsource, they must go somewhere, even pay to have to use that facility. Time factor. Time allocated is not enough to make thorough preparations for lessons. Some teachers taught without lesson plans. And this, together with the workload, does not seem to enable teachers to efficiently and effectively implement the competence-based curriculum. Workload had increased. Time is not, then we had, I will tie this with the other, adequacy of teaching staff. Majority of the schools did not have adequate staff to match the enrollment. Numbers have increased, but the teachers, the staffing, still so low. This was worse in private schools where the majority of science teachers were actually moonlighting. What was of interest to know is teachers who claim they don't have the time to be able to do everything as required by the CBC. But here they are moonlighting, splitting their day into 3 schools. Somehow they find the time. Run from school A to school B to school C in the same day. But the same teacher says, CBC needs a lot of time to do ABCD, which time is not there. What an irony. Contradiction. There is serious problem of inadequate teachers in the science subjects. And actually, as a matter of fact, the ministry, this I can quote, Ministry of Education Report 2022 noted that 33% of the schools lacked teaching staff in science and vocational subjects. The ministry is aware. The good thing that they are aware and they are here. Implementation of CBC towards teaching of learners with learning disabilities. There is something touching, though, that there seems to be a negative attitude the teachers when it came to the teaching and learning of students with learning disabilities. So implementation of CBC toward the teaching of learners with learning disabilities was being affected by teachers' negative attitude towards learners with disabilities. They would say they are not trained, they don't know how to handle them, they don't know how to deal with them, so definitely they are not giving it that much focus and attention. Parental involvement. It was found out that lack of parental involvement is putting a lot of pressure on teachers. There is need for their support, especially on the issue of the requisite resources and supporting their children in their learning. The table there is a recap of the findings we've gone through and the percentages and the comments of the researchers, which I may not go through. Time is not so much on my side. If you'll permit me, hopefully at some later stage we'll be able to get a printout of this. I'm racing against time. Now, with what I've delivered, we came up with a proposed model for effective implementation of CBC derived from the study findings. 1, the concerned stakeholders must have a clear understanding of the proposed innovation and its implementation approach. Stakeholders here, quite obviously, we are not talking about ministry or NCDC, we are talking about the other category. Most of our teachers, parents, getting good grasp of the concept of CBC and embracing it. As to how we will be able to do that and achieve that, it's what we can come up with out of this conference. 2, teachers must be given relevant skills so that they possess the capabilities, the requisites for carrying out the innovation. Teachers need to be skilled more. We trained much less, and yet there are many more that were never trained. And those many more that were never trained are implementing the curriculum. How well are they doing it? It's an area of interest for us. We might want to dig deeper into that. 3, the necessary materials and equipment for the innovation must be furnished and available to schools. We need to do more, publish more, avail, distribute more, or avail more some of these materials that we know will do justice to the implementation of the competence-based assessment in the framework of the new secondary curriculum. 4, if need be, the school structure or programs must be modified so that they can be compatible with the new curriculum being implemented. The challenge we found out there was a teacher needs to have much more time interacting and interfacing with students to guide them. But which time is not provided for on the timetable, it's not there. So then now what? What do they do? Those that are available and would want to avail themselves, time is up. He must go away. Learners need him more. Where do they find him? The time, the programs, the timetabling, and the other extracurricular activities are not a kind of also fighting for space on the timetable. It becomes a challenge. This is what teachers were confessing to us. So we may need to think how the school program or the timetabling can be done to see that more time is provided for some of these endeavors. Number 5, the teachers in the innovation must be equally motivated to spend the required time and effort to make the innovation, this innovation, a success. Equally motivated. This is what we found out. I hope some of us here know as well as they do. I don't know whether you believe that out there, the situation where a science teacher is being paid double or even more than double the other one has had a damaging effect and continues to have. We are getting these sentiments from the teachers. So, a teacher of CRE of history of English language is required to avail himself to do much more for the learners. Then he steps back and says, excuse me, if my work is not valued, maybe that should be done by the science teachers whose work is valued and rewarded. Hello? I hope I'm speaking to us. This is the point out there. So we are saying that there should be some we need to think how teachers can be equally motivated. Someone will say, if I'm teaching my English language, a biology teacher or chemistry teacher needs my English language to be able to deliver his biology. But here you are, valuing my English language less and paying me less. Nothing much to add. Point next, focus on concrete efforts to overcome implementation barriers, such as inadequate budget allocation to agencies training educators, and fostering periodic monitoring and evaluation of the innovation. We think that budget allocation, those inadequacies relating to budget allocation, in some way should be constraining the work of NCDC. Possibly NCDC would roll out to do much more, but they don't have the budget that is adequate. Or even maybe this to assess. Ministry of Education should give adequate support to agencies to conduct continuous training programs in order to provide teachers with the requisite skills for the implementation of CBC and CBA. Our model also proposes that the Ministry of Education should give directives on innovative teaching approaches to include and underscore the use of e-technology. And if we have to promote that, then we must think of the logistical support. Schools, computers, and then internet connection. The Ministry of Education should come up with a policy on the teaching load of science teachers. We got teachers, this was very interesting, teachers saying that those who are paid better should be given more load. And you see, they see them running all over. While he's teaching his class, a boda is waiting at the gate. The next 5 minutes is in the next school. So they seem to be running everywhere, running all over, and yet they are paid better. So here, I don't know, maybe this was coming more from their counterparts on the other side, that the teaching load of science teachers should be increased. Maybe this may help to curb the rapid or the ongoing moonlighting. In what spirit? Your guess is as good as mine. Then, this is a good one here. UNEP, with the financial support from the government, should continuously train teachers on CBA. I take note of this. UNEP started this already, but there are funding gaps constraining its effort. This I want to repeat. UNEP is already started on this, but the funding gaps are constraining its effort. Of course, as the assessment bodies, professional assessors, we would want to do much more for our teachers out there. If those in this audience can think about UNEP's funding gaps that can close this. Next, head teachers should ensure that teachers plan assessment with the schemes of assessment in place, so that those kind of schemes that require higher level thinking, where higher level thinking items are given more weight than lower level thinking items, even in the way we assess and award scores. School head teachers should organize internally for seminars, workshops, if need be, timely, for instance, in their schools in order to emphasize and promote CPA tenets. We are saying that schools should be equipped, should equip libraries more with books, labs with equipment that would facilitate and improve teaching and learning, e.g. computers for research, and then internet connection. And teachers should be facilitators in their classrooms to help students take an active role in their own learning. We're also appealing to parents to do much more on their part for the success of the learning of their children. I would like to end there and say thank you so very much for listening to me.
Our brother Rogers, you agree with me that Rogers is a polished researcher and his zeal for innovation has been greatly exhibited. I want to thank him, and I want to say that a lot of time is not on our hands. We have you as distinguished participants, having come to attest to this, that this is a very interesting research. We gave it a lot of time. It has brought a lot of interesting aspects that are food for thought, not only for researchers, but also for the policymakers in our midst. I also appreciate that now our sugar levels are down, and we wouldn't want to drink our lunch, because also lunch has been provided. But we shall end it here so that the next discussant, who is supposed to be for this paper, will be carried forward after the health break. I hope you agree with me. And since I have served for the 2 terms, the next chairman, I want to thank you so much for having been a good audience that listened in very attentively. Any suggestions should be carried forward the general discussion. Thank you very much. Over to the organizers for further engagement.
This place is going to be
Ladies and gentlemen, I was advised before that the tea was ready. Now that announcement has been cancelled. So we apologize, and we call upon you to suspend your appetite so that we have the discussant coming in. Sorry for that mix-up, because when people saw people moving up and down, they thought that the people were ready, but they seem not to. So let me have the honor to introduce to you our discussant for this engagement, and this is none other than Professor Samson Omudu. Professor is currently working with the Makerere School of Business Education, Business School, MOOPS, and he has a spanning experience of around 24 years as an acclaimed scholar and researcher. Professor Omudu has a number of publications under his name, and I wish to take this singular honor and pleasure to invite him so that he carries out the discussion on this paper that has just been presented. Professor Omudu.
Yes, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Chairperson elect, Professor Christine, the representative of the Executive Director, all good participants around. It's a pleasure to be with you and discuss the research. Because the university teacher, and you can't make a scientific statement, evidence-based, then you are misplaced. So I join others to congratulate the airport management on their being foresighted and creating a directorate for the research agenda. I joined teaching customarily at the level of teaching assistant after first degree. And I've been teaching and growing academically. I've seen a number of councils, a number of boards, international bodies, local. A disclaimer. I'm not coming to police the presenter. I only provide my opinion. And my opinion will be based on science. Scholars don't believe in stories. What informs what they are saying, and that will be my focus. Are you saying the same thing at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end? We call it focus, we call it consistency. In academic writing and scholarship, everything matters. Your writing style, grammar, choice of words, etc. A good report can collapse if you joke with any of those. So I'll try my best to mention anything that I find significant within my means. I will begin with the positives, and then I will start in my voice in terms of critiquing, because then I will be adding value. Oh, that is why then am I here? Anyway. A fair job was done. Thank you, presenter, for being eloquent. Thank you for being confident. You know, sometimes good public speakers can make a bridge where there is no river. So you have been very, very confident. I'm very happy. But my major job is to make a comment on whether what you say eloquently adds up. In one sense, that's what I'm supposed to do. The report covered all the essential chapters. The topic is interesting, and the issue under investigation is of national importance. Very important. When you talk about competence-based curriculum in this country and world over now, I can assure you, you are spot on. We have been blamed over time that we talk again. And sometimes end up in churches dancing and singing day and night. But we are not skilling our people. So at various levels, you get out every day. So I congratulate everybody, all the stakeholders, for picking this topic. It's the thing for the day. I thought we should clap for them. I'm discussing, I'm guided, but as we are discussing, What do you exactly do? You say the good and the bad. It's just semantics. It's a case of words. I'm not criticizing. Criticizing is different from critiquing. You have to put it right. Say discuss and looks at the positive and the weaknesses of the thing. So I'm fairly right. So like I've said, the topic is very relevant and I have no problem with it. Now, there are things we do traditionally as academics when we are writing reports. And as I was looking through it, eventually this is a public document. And therefore, probably after this session, if you keep the drawers, then you are not done as service. So it does not go to the public. I would love to comment anything that will help for you. Actually, here I'm going to help improve it better. It's a good document, but can be better. In good faith. The introduction, I tried to read through it from page 1 of the end. I really gave them and it came early, soft copy and eventually hard copy. The real introduction is a chapter. But again, you notice the introduction of the introduction chapter. In my opinion, this should be an overview of the chapter. And to me, the best practice would be this chapter presents A, B, C, D. And I thought that was missing, and you might want to look at it again. It's not just positive, it's not precise, but I'm saying the report can be better, can be improved before we release it, at least the final copy. I'm also happy that the backgrounds well articulated. Most of the subject issues are captured on competence-based education. But maybe at your convenient time, when we were still 12 boys running through primary and maybe also later at high school, we say that choose the best option. And this, all of your neighbors, you see them here, they are going to give you all the answers which are right, but they say the best. So sometimes when you take it a second time, and you're the author, time comes when you can't put yourself any better. So also think that you might want to get somebody outside the team that invested and wrote a report. There are editors around who can do a bit of this work in terms of choice of words and the evidence has been a length of paragraph, connectivity of sentences. One sentence should lead the next sentence, and then the earlier paragraph should lead the next paragraph. Scientifically, we call it logical flow. Or else you'll be jumping from one issue before you appear to better reader understand. Again, you introduce another thing which should have come later. That's why I'm emphasizing this point. I tried to capture some examples, saying page 2, a sentence is dropped. Therefore, the implementation of the new lower secondary school curriculum faces enormous challenges. But when you look at it's coming from nowhere, is it a conclusion? Are you introducing something? I don't know. This comes to the reader. As I continue reading, the good practice again is to start globally when you are writing, global perspective, and then domesticate. It's also good practice. We are not invading away here. This is what been talked about. I'm not, everything is okay, but I've said, and let us be enjoying as it progresses. These are smaller things, but when they accumulate, they can bring the report into question. Here and there, sometimes the Israelis in the background are out of focus. They not match and connect well with the objectives you set out to investigate. The background scarcely mentions challenges, but does not clearly highlight the benefits and objectives of the competence-based curriculum. Because that should have been a key document of reference. Moreover, implementation challenges appear to be known the way you wrote it. Because if you are sort of stating them as if you are confirmed, then why do you go on the field? I think this is an issue of writing style. You know, you go and investigate especially in case the unknown. But here and there you find as if the ordered information or the confirmed and the question is then why investigate. You should have also captured the best practices, recommended teaching and learning approaches as established already elsewhere. On the problem statement, some good effort is evident in the formulation. Major issues are captured, which I love to see. What would be desirable as a sure fact. Then the practical problem, what is written progress? I think we are talking about implementation progress here. I'm also comfortable with the level of seriousness, the level of, the seriousness of the problem. You know how serious the problem? Is it so scary? Is it fatal? And he did a fairly good job there, and with evidence. I must say thank you to you. But you fell short of identifying potential sources of some of the things you are complaining about. Maybe slow or questionable implementation. And then people who have tried to write a few things down about competence-based, how far they gain the insights which are documented. I thought you should also improve on that. In other words, the status, such status currently, before you land. Purpose also is so naked. It's a single set, it's okay, depending on where you come from. But I will share with you my copy here. What exactly the study thought to establish? Actually, for this case, how well the new curriculum for our scholar education has been implemented so far. Therefore, the aim was to determine the level of implementation success. Objectives, in my opinion, are part of care. But although you might want again to tie them precisely with the background, with the purpose and the problem statement, so that they connect and speak one language. They must speak to each other. Significance well presented, but you might want to go further to demonstrate clearly how the study findings inform policy, theory, and practice. There is need to articulate how your findings contribute to implementation of the new curriculum by various actors in the sector. That's lower secondary education. When you go to study scope, there are normally 3 areas there of interest: subject, scope, and then geographical time. You see, if you are investigating, your interest is implementation progress. But what exactly are we looking at? I wish you could expand on that. Now, on the covering geographical, I don't know why you mix population here, unit of analysis, unit of inquiry. Why don't you focus on the regions, the way you were saying, here? And we have 5 major regions, because we are talking about geographical, physical. Time scope. I don't know what you will do here. The nature of the study compels me to think. The interest, in my opinion, should have been to investigate progress over time. this lecture, I'm just giving opinion, and later on other people will also respond. If you're investigating something of this nature, progress, it would be preferable you stage the inquiry. You know, you have called this one baseline, and then you indicate the reader that this is not the end itself, but at certain stages, the way you are talking, I almost heard you say that we shall not end here, but shall continue monitoring, shall continue assessing. Then, you know, when you have that one in mind, then, you know, put it the right thing, that then what's the desire, what is the desire? Because you say it's cross-sectional, you know, you have not tied yourself a snapshot at this point in time. How did you want to, you know, this thing calculus going to be there over years? I saw that indication should have been there, but think about it. Sometimes you look at things differently. So going forward, I don't know whether I need to include other objectives, but somewhere I saw a model which I thought was outside the objectives. Let me first comment on future review. Again, the introduction of the first section, my upbringing in research is mentioning exactly what the section is going to talk about. It makes work for the reader very easy. That in this section, this chapter, we are presenting A, B, C, D. Then you unpack each of them one at a time. You know, sometimes when we are writing, you need to write for a grandmother. You know, you are writing some of this for parents, for everybody. You know, your stakeholders are really too broad, and you want them to be very clear. Also, you mentioned here about books, journals, what? I thought this should go to methodology. Because, you know, if you keep lumping everything in one chapter, then what do you say? You end up over repeating the same things, and then the biggest problems there. There's things you mention literature, like the secondary sources, textbooks, journals, whatever, you know, these are secondary sources. Take them to source of data. The frameworks, the theories, I don't know why you didn't mention this in the background a bit, how it informs your study. The theories you choose. But you did good work, I must say. Most of the citations were current. But again, I seemed to miss out the author's voice. On what authors have said, what do you say? How do you position yourself in your study? So that you know you identify the gaps of what others have mentioned, and then you are taken from that. You know, there's no matter what we call research and scholarship. Literature is about copying and research according to what again. According to and so. But what did they do? Where was it done? And what are you going to do? You know, it improves the relevance of your current effort. That something can be done, however scanty it is. But in your view, maybe they fell short of ABCD. I thought your voice should have come out more clear there. Natural citations should be the posted reference list. Let me take you to chapter 3, and this is very, very important because it tells us exactly what you set out to do was done rightly. Whether qualitative or quantitative. I almost hinted on a research design. And this should be mixed with the research approaches. We mainly have two major research cultures, qualitative or quantitative, but now we're also talking about a mixed approach, which is acceptable. But I must quickly chip in, like I said, and this is what I've said earlier. The design you choose should be dictated by the nature of what you are investigating. If it's one-off and you close the chapter, it's okay. But if there is room to continue monitoring progress, then you say, you know, we are at this stage. Actually, even when you get funding, there are multi-stage studies. We get funding every year. And I thought that's also very important. Because if you close it, you might get, okay, this one, another project. Here, this one still continuing. And you know, as you reported your statistics, the performance is not yet very, very good, as you know. The absorption of the curriculum and implementation has been slacking. And where, I think in most cases, this is staying. People are negative, you know, you want to get a textbook, read at one, you produce the class, you roar, you call it roaring. But not competence-based. We are talking about imparting skills. And many people find it difficult. Secondary schools actually struggling, the teachers. Now, that's what I'm saying, why mixed methods in this particular issue? You know, just a comment, like you, if I'm going to massacre, I can even walk on the foot, you know, the batters walk from Kisoro. I can use a board at a bridge. I can use a special hire. I can go to tax park and you pick it. It means what? Oh, I self-drive. Oh, I check a small plane, these little carriers. And drop me quickly. If I have the money. But no matter what we do in research, in a single study, James, it's not good for you to present to us everything you know about such methods. Like that, because survey design can be there, the interviews are supposed to be there, focus groups. Being baseline, the other mistake we make, we see when you present means frequency tables, they just become quantitative. Even quantitative can report averages. In my opinion, the best approach could have been purely qualitative. Because when you look at the objectives, let me go to one of the objectives quickly. To assess the understanding of this concept, the understanding is quantitative there, even slightly. I thought that made an in-depth interrogation. Because as I read through, you pose a question, teachers understand competence-based assessment, and the respondent is a teacher. And this is not information from this gentleman already. Deeper insights. This may not be for today, but this comment is also help each of us for the future. You know, problem is quantitative. I'm not saying that quantitative is bad. Actually, I'm more quantitative, but I'm also very good at quantitative. The beauty of qualitative, especially in this case of this study, you give the participants opportunity to talk everything. In the first level, and as you know, the investigator has to be part and parcel of the process. You know, the other people just tick. I saw your scale was anchored, it was a 3-point scale. You know, so it's almost like saying, say yes or no. But in this case, the objective is we want to establish whether the teachers clearly understand this concept. Because it is then that they can be able to deliver. And I thought it was a very good thing. But if you waste your time saying, tick, that yes, I understand. Oh no, I don't understand. You give a lot of information outside. You see scientific queries should be seen to be logical, to be making sense. And that's, you know, science doesn't lie. professional doctors nowadays don't administer even these new anti-malarials without saying the lab first. Now let us treat what we are very sure that you have malaria. Nowadays when COVID is similar. Even bacterial infection can be similar. So it's better you send some to the lab. So science doesn't deceive. So we want to use the reagents which are appropriate. If the work of the physician then to speculate that this could be malaria. It's also possible it's COVID. Depending on what you say, you have appetite, you have pain all over the place, and some of these symptoms are common everywhere. But you set on some that works for this case. Until proven, then the person says suspicion. That's the best way of investigation. But this for improvement again. As I proceeded, I just want to highlight the things which I so impressed me, and others had questions for improvement again. The study was more quantitative. Yes. But what disturbs me, you go to page 18, second last paragraph. Actually, I'm taking youth of analysis and make the use of population. First of all, the population itself should emerge from the unit of analysis. What are you analyzing? And you confidently say, my unit of analysis is the new curriculum. That's page 18, second last page, sentence. I'm just going by, I hope the document I have is what you will have. Yes. Because the moment you say, my unit of analysis is the curriculum itself, and how long you can investigate anything. You can even investigate this microphone. Whether it's good or not, you say. I think it's good. Or it's bad. So you can investigate the curriculum in its own right. And that's no problem. But where I had a problem, the job we have when you give us these reports, it's not a simple thing. It's back and forth. You really need to go there and see whether all the sections tie together. And that's what I would desirably want to see. That are you telling the same story all through? Actually, when I was a young person in academics, I thought it was repetition. A report should appear like you are talking the same thing, but the topic is one sentence talking about the study. A background, you are contextualizing the problem and the probe. They now get what exactly you want. So you find that as you go to purpose, it gets like you are restating the topic. But should you make a mistake of making each chapter stand alone, the scholars will get annoyed with you. Because that's not how we do our things. But most of the things were good. I'm only looking at how we can make the thing in better. I'm going to be honest about this. So, I go now to the study files and say, what did they do there? And when you get to page 28, what we call sample characteristics. Those of you are familiar with the language, you can't investigate our world. You come from the scientific population. If you say schools of analysis, some of the schools we have in Uganda, which are lower secondary, you don't forge it. Some will say, I think the chairperson, Prof, he talked about ethics. The statistics, you don't forge it. There should be authority. That's dependable. And the number of schools in the lower secondary in Uganda are so many. As at that time, accountants say, as at. For us scholars, you say the authority didn't put the year. Because that report should be somewhere. You don't look at the sky. Now from that so many, you say, I can't reach every school. So you come to a sample. Now that sample is what you describe. Now the moment you told me a unit of analysis is a curriculum, I would expect you, as if the study is about to, analyzing the curriculum itself. And you see, that's what I was calling consistency. What exactly are you propagating? Should you miss that point there, then you are not like a politician. LOC 1 is the one who played the role. LOC 5 is the one who planned it. I don't know what he has done. The MP has planned it. Who did it? Then academics we have to be very clear. And by then it's a very good report. We can only prove it. And what we investigate is very serious. So now, by the time you go this way, a population becomes schools. You have now even left teachers and students. Because here, the heading normally, my friends that keep your eyes on the topic and whatever chapter you are in. The moment you lose focus on the topic, you begin talking generally. So if you have said you are analyzing the curriculum, but now here you are analyzing schools. Somewhere the respondents are teachers and students. Now here I see characteristics of secondary schools. That's table 1. Yes. I go to figure 1, shows types of schools studied. I go next, shows categories of schools studied. I don't see anything. Even if I forced my wisdom, let the population be teachers and students. Then the sample should be teachers and these are human beings. What was the Uganda? What was it? You have teachers, but some of them have PhDs. And their understanding of complex base will not be the same as a person who has a certificate and maybe even failed. These things are not for jokes. My name is also Mutege. That's why we send to other people read our things, say that by the time it comes from games, we are safer. But since it's a process, I guess this government will help improve the thing. So by the time it's in the public domain, more tangible, you should feel it. Some of this idea of serious concern I don't take for granted, because I didn't get my head to it. Okay, so, population and sample size, there's no big deal there. The moment the first one is okay, then the rest. When I went to data collection methods, I've just stated, it is never too late, but just think about it. I still sincerely insist that asking questions in this particular study, which you can't just teach it, was not very, very helpful. Maybe, but if it was, I think it's one thing you would have avoided. Let us not be tempted to list everything that exists. You should know what works best for this study. And then you go for that. Because when you are reporting your findings, you are more focused. You are not all over the place. That's why you have to be selective. That for this particular study, I'm just using my objective for as a case. You wanted to get there at the level of understanding. For us as scholars, we assume, actually, you are a researcher, your understanding of competence-based curriculum is not necessarily the understanding of the how the teachers understand it. And you want to open it up. And to such a point, when a number of them have spoken, and you find some theme emerging, that all of them seem to mention the same thing. That to us, when I talk of curriculum based, it means A, B, C, D. Because now all of your key formats seem to point the same thing. To us as lower secondary teachers, what we understand by competence-based curriculum is this. Now that's when you go to your course and exams and say, one of the formats, normally we call them, maybe format 1A, had this to say. Then it ties together, you'll find begin tying together as an objective. Okay, let me summarize. I think to me that was the major one. The rest of them just fit in, if that was rectified, especially when you are making the fine tuning. Of course, the presentation was okay. The sections, like I said, again, everywhere there was a mix of issues on findings, no clear line between qualitative and quantitative. The point of convergence was also very clear, and yet you stated that it would be convergent. Quantitative findings only for teachers. Only for teachers. I already have complained about it. And when you ask some sort of comment about himself, there's what we call a bias. We tend to praise ourselves. Now, I understand the thing. Okay, very few people will tell you, I'm teaching what I don't understand. That would be a very honest person. So how do you control for such forms of biases? But actually, if you ask a secondary teacher like you understand what they are teaching. It's like you tell you that I understand or I don't understand totally. So you see that you need to have said for that. We had also to get views from other stakeholders. So you sort of validate what the teachers are saying. I thought it also was something for the future lessons. Of course, you'll refer to what we call the MEMS and MEMS of self-reporting. Because I'm saying here, what happened to other respondents, parents, Minister of Education, whether content for what happened to them. So this one now is a duplication level of rigor. Like I've said, rigor here, scientific rigor, is not about how many methods and tools you have used. It's about the deeper insights you try to tease out from the respondents without bias. Some of the forensics appeared in findings which were not within the objectives. For example, when you go to section 4.5, there is some information there, I don't know where to attach which objective. Just fell from heaven. You might want to delete it. In fact, table of 4 and the attendant narrative is misplaced. You might want to improve interpretation of qualitative findings. It's a good practice to separate quotes from interpretation. Put a quote, and then it is coming upon that such to interpret what is probably, at least in qualitative context. I saw you presenting findings and almost interpreting them the way I would have expected. Recommendations, try to keep them within it, should really be guided by the standard objectives. Some of them also seem to, when you look at the first recommendation, the objective was maybe to press the level of understanding of the concept, or how they understood the concept. But when you go to recommendation, it seems to be something, and references have talked about it. I didn't get an opportunity to look at the researchers' comments. The appendices were lacking. I don't know whether it was intentional. General comments hiding issues. I've already mentioned some of them, choice of words. You might have to check them, punctuation, formatting, lengths of paragraphs. Don't make another paragraph too long, then another one, 2 sentences. It's not good manners, that's bad manners. Yeah, the report is good, but can be better. Say the right person.
Thank you very, very much, Professor. I want to thank Professor Samson Komudu for that candid and professional opinion. Ladies and gentlemen, you believe, like I do, that actually research is an endless activity where we search and search again. And as competent researchers, we need to know that an eye that looks at itself is blind.